Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? It's another week for us to spend together. So happy Monday. Hope you're doing well. Hope that you are doing good in your part of the world and that the weather is treating you nice and that your family is well. I'm doing pretty good. I slept a little longer last night, so I'm getting a little bit of a later start to this morning. Didn't walk my dog. Didn't have my coffee, so it's gonna be a little bit of a different morning in the way how I feel and all that. But that doesn't change my excitement for being here with you and for being able to start the week off with you. I'm sure we're all going to have a great week. I'm feeling very optimistic about this week, We're going to say goodbye to August in this week. September's already here, which is really mind-boggling to me. And then where did the summer go? I mean, it's gone so fast, right? So really happy to be able to spend all this time with you. Hope that you're doing well. I'm already seeing some great messages in the chat. In fact, I'm seeing some messages from people that were there in the Sunday class yesterday. And if you weren't there yesterday, you missed a heck of a class. Wow. For only the second time, ChatGPT gave us bad answers. And we had to go through debugging processes to get the last two models to work. To ChatGPT's credit, it did manage to finally get us to an answer. But wow, we went through a lot yesterday. So I'm really surprised that some of the people in the chat are here because it was a heck of a session. I know I was tired after yesterday's session. Believe it or not, these live streams take a lot out of me, like the I can't remember what they call it. I've seen little images about this, about how you only have so much like extrovert energy inside of you, right? Well, this takes all of it. After this, I'm just like at home doing my own thing or at the dog park with my dog. I'm not an extrovert after the streams are over. And yesterday, we went 3 solid hours yesterday. That's crazy. It's our longest class stream yet. Which is ironic because I thought to myself, this chapter shouldn't be so bad. We should be able to get through it real quickly. So 3 hours yesterday. If you missed it, go ahead and go to YouTube, watch the replay. It was a very interesting class. But yeah, it went really well. I'm glad that we got through those debugging issues. Very hard to get through those sometimes. But again, to ChatGPT's credit, it was able to do it, So really interesting course from the AI perspective, right? Because remember, we're trying to focus on using AI more than anything else. So yeah, really interesting course yesterday. So in addition to that, I also want to say that I know that I've been getting a lot of new followers, lots of new followers in the past week or so. So if you're new here, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I do regular content, but I also do live streaming content. So if you want to start watching on a daily basis, I stream every day at 1500 GMT. So really happy to have you here. We always start off with our global roll call where we ask people to let us know their city, state, province, country that they're viewing from. I enjoy traveling, so it's always fun for me to see all the different countries and cities. I think there's a lot of fun in seeing that. And also it just helps to build to the global community of data scientists and helps us all understand how broad and global and maybe even competitive data science can be. So if you are listening, feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself, city, state, country, province, and that's it. You don't have to tell us anything else. You don't have to ask any technical questions or feel like you have to be like an experienced data scientist to participate. It's just a way for us to, kind of get to know each other a little bit. And also, from an emotional intelligence perspective, it's always polite to introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself before you start a conversation with somebody or whatnot. So it's also good practice for that. And then after that, I'm happy to take your questions. I know that the school year is starting up for a lot of people. Both my niece and nephew started the school year this past weekend. So if you guys have questions, or if you're a student or mid-career professional, whatever the case may be, however I can help you, please go ahead and post your question in the chat. And we'll see where the conversation takes us, Sometimes we go short, sometimes we go long. It just depends on the conversation. For most streams, I don't really walk in here with an agenda. So while I wait for you guys to fill up my chat with your introductions, again, your city, state, province, country, I always like to start off with an opening note. For today's opening note, I'd like to talk to you about rationale. Rationale, in its short form, is basically the explanation of your thought process. And the reason I want to focus on rationale is because rationale is very important in data science, and really it's important in all of the sciences. And where it really plays the biggest role is in this notion that I've introduced to all of you before, where you should always separate your process from your results. Right? Those are two completely different items that you should isolate. Because there can be a variety of results, or 4 possible results from that, right? You could have something that's a really good process, but you got a bad result because of variance, right? And in turn, you could have a good result, but a bad process, so you got to your good result also by variance. But the reason why I really kind of want to bring this up also is because as you grow and as you mature and as you meet more scientists in your career, you realize that the best scientists out there really focus on their rationale. They focus in the rationale both in how they develop their processes, as well as when they are listening to other processes, or when they're reading a white paper, or when they're learning about a new technique. They can distinguish the results of the white paper from how the white paper got those results. Because they're really interested in the how, right? They're interested in seeing that rationale, that process, the approach. Because then you can say, oh, okay, yeah, I agree with that. That's a very reasonable approach. Or you can say, I don't know. I think that approach might be flawed. I don't know about that. And at that point, the result is interesting, but almost irrelevant. Right? The result doesn't really matter per se, right? So that's an important part of the scientific mind in terms of how you approach something that's new to you, or something that you read, or something that you're creating, where you also want to display your rationale to how you created something. And the reason I'm choosing to bring this up today is because the question I get the most, the most common direct message I get from all of you is, I'm too embarrassed to publish my results. Or what if I publish my results and people laugh at me, or they find faults, or I've never published my code before. I don't feel good about that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Focus on your rationale and presenting your rationale in a clear way. If you're new to publishing, I know a lot of you are, focus on presenting your rationale in a clear way. If you can do that, then the other scientists out there, the people that you ultimately want to be talking to, will also focus on your rationale, and they will essentially ignore your results. Your results won't matter. So you don't have to worry about putting out a bad conclusion, because it's the rationale that's really like the heart of your project. And if you can present a clear rationale, then yes, people will agree with you or people will disagree with you, but nobody's going to fault you per se. They're just going to suggest different ways that you could be using that rationale or applying that rationale, right? So I hope that takes a little bit of the embarrassment out of it for you, because I hear that a lot from you, that you don't want to publish because you're too embarrassed. I understand that it's a hard process, but it's also a critical part of being a data scientist. Whether you do it now or in your career or whatnot, you will have to publish your work at some point, even if it's just among your coworkers or to your stakeholders or to your company. You will have to do publishing of your work. So I encourage you to start earlier, because that publishing can help you land those data science jobs. I'm not going to say that it's impossible to get a job without publishing, but I think it makes it significantly easier when you do publish. And it doesn't have to be any major publications. It can just be your own personal blog, an article on LinkedIn, whatever you'd like. Okay? But make sure that you are out there trying to at least get your work out there and present your rationale. That is an important step of the data science process, and it's an important step of you developing your career. And the analogy I like to give is it's like jumping into the deep end of the pool, right? Everybody's scared going into the deep end of the pool their first time. But you jump in your first time and it's like, hey, that wasn't so bad. Okay, I survived. I'm still here. And then you do it the second time. Oh, that was even easier. And then you do it the third time. Oh, that was easy. That was even fun. It's now starting to become fun. And then the fourth time, and it just gets easier. It'll never get easier if you don't do that first time, right? There's no substitute for that first time. I wish I could tell you there was. But you have to get out there and do it. Okay? So I'm going to leave you with that. Get out there and publish. Lose the embarrassment. Focus on your rationale. And focus on separating that, and realize that other scientists, when people like me read your work, they'll be doing the same separation, right? Your results will be minimal compared to what you show me in your rationale. Okay? So, again, if you're just joining us, city, state, country, province, would love to hear from you, but let me start going through some of the messages in the chat. Michael, hello, Dennis and everyone. Michael, how are you still here? Weren't you in the class yesterday? Aren't you exhausted? I'm surprised anyone from the class yesterday is here. It was a heck of a class. So good to see you, Michael. Hope that you're doing well. Rohan from Vizag, India. Rohan, I know you like being first, but Michael beat you out today. Hope you're doing well out there in India. Patrick, how you doing, Patrick? Patrick says good morning all. Patrick is our moderator here. So shout out to Patrick. Rex, another one of our moderators. Hello, everyone from NYC. Rex, I don't know how you're here, man. I'm exhausted. I don't know how you're not exhausted too. Patrick says, I've got a great feeling about this week too. Yeah, Patrick, me too. I think it's good to be optimistic, right? So I'm going to be optimistic about this week. It's going to be a good week. Rohan says, I could not stay the full time yesterday. We'll watch the replay later. Ooh. Rohan, it's 3 hours. It's like 3 hours and like a few minutes or whatever. So it's you're going to be there a while, Rohan. You're going to be there a while. Yassine, how you doing, my friend? Hello, sir. Yassine from Fez, Morocco. Yassine was also trying to provide some debugging help yesterday. And you know what, Yassine? I just thought of this. We have to give ChatGPT credit, because I know that a lot of people in the chat were suggesting answers, suggesting changes, but none of us had the right change, right? Only ChatGPT came up with the right changes, right? With the proper encodings and all that, right? So I know that you were throwing some suggestions out there, but if we looked at it as a humans versus AI challenge, the AI won, right? Let me know if you agree with that. But none of the human answers that people were throwing out that I was trying were valid solutions, right? It took ChatGPT a while, but it did get to a solution. We as the humans never really got to the solution, right? So something to think about. Tarun, good to see you again, Tarun. Hope you're doing well. Hello, Dennis from India, Tamil Nadu. Cool. Good to see you, Tarun. Hope you're doing well out there. Is it warm in India still now? I think it's cooling down, isn't it? Let us know what the weather's in India's like. Sai says, kindly post the Discord link in the chat box. Okay, I can do that. All right, there you go, Sai. I've both pinned it and I have added it to the chat box, okay? Argod says, yo, Dennis. Hey, Argod, good to see you. I think you were there for most of the class yesterday too, weren't you? I think you were. Let me know. Sarvesh, our good friend Sarvesh. Hello, sir. Sarvesh here from Mumbai, India. Nice to see you, Sarvesh. Let me know what the weather in India is like now. I'm curious. Hey, I like DS stuck on algorithms. Okay. Well, what part of it are you stuck on? Let us know. Give us some details. To be stuck on algorithms is a pretty wide term, right? Lots of lots of ways to be stuck on algorithms. We were almost stuck in yesterday's class, right? So give us more detail, okay? Hey Tim, how you doing? Tim is our guy from Michigan. Hi Dennis, I've got a buzz outside of the 1 standard deviation. Not really sure what you mean by that, Tim. Give me some more information, please. Tarun, cool weather in India would be around 30 degrees. Yeah. Yeah, 30 degrees is still plenty warm, right? I guess that goes for all of India, right? Because I don't think there's really any parts of India that vary that much, right? That's crazy. Yassine says, yes, AI did humble us, unfortunately, but thank God it's on our side. It is. Yeah, it did humble us, even though it did take a while. I mean, we must have gone through at least 10 different versions of that code before ChatGPT finally landed on the answer, right? But you know, Yassine, you're giving an interesting point there. But thank God it's on our side. I had a conversation with some friends, with some colleagues at a company I worked for when ChatGPT first came out. And we were talking about how interesting it was and how powerful it was. And I made a prediction back then. One of them, I made 2 predictions back then. One of them was that you were going to see advertising, that it was going to be driven by advertising. You know, and I remember I even wrote this in an email. I said, you know, the next time you log into ChatGPT, it's going to give you an answer and then it's going to say, this answer brought to you by your friends at Microsoft, right? So OpenAI is clearly headed in that direction. Because if you watch the news, OpenAI has gone out and they are signing deals to use companies' future content. So, for example, you guys can find this and verify me. About 2 months ago, they signed a deal with the Financial Times. The Financial Times, which is a great newspaper. I love the Financial Times. They will be licensing all of their future content for OpenAI to use in ChatGPT. Makes sense, right? But 2 problems with that. One, it creates advertising because inevitably there'll be mentions of the Financial Times in your answers. And 2, it brings a voice to those answers because now those answers are not going to be this global consensus of documents like we have now. It's going to be the consensus of the Financial Times, right? So that voice, that focus of ChatGPT is going to get narrower and narrower. Because right now you can go on there, get anything you want and get it, and get your answers in a fairly neutral voice. But that's going to change, right? Because now you're not going to get the voice of that. You're going to get the voice of the Financial Times editorial board, right? So that was one prediction that I made that is coming true. And the second prediction is your message reminded me of my second prediction. Thank God your message reminded me of my second prediction. Thank God it's on our side. The second prediction I made was that there was going to be a government and military only version of ChatGPT. Like that, if that hasn't already happened, I'd be surprised if that was not already underway. There's going to be government exclusive and military exclusive versions of ChatGPT. My gut tells me that the full or the more advanced versions of something like ChatGPT are probably too valuable, which is to say too powerful, to be out there for anyone to use for free, right? Eventually we, the general public, are going to start getting like drained down versions of these LLMs, right? Like we're going to get the kind of okay version, and then the elite version is going to go to the governments and military, right? Presumably, that'll be U.S. focused, but who's to say it wouldn't include other governments, right? I mean, OpenAI is a capitalist enterprise, right? So, yes, thank God it's on our side, but for how long? Or is it on our side? Maybe we're only seeing, maybe this is like the kind of okay version now, and there is like a super elite version, right? So maybe something for you guys to think about. Not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. And if I disappear, you guys can refer back to this chat. You know, if the black helicopters come for me, refer back to this stream. But I truly do believe that, right? That there will be like fenced off versions of ChatGPT just for the military or just for the government. So yeah, it's on our side, you know, but for how long? I think that's a valid question. So anyways, I'll stop that for now, but something for you guys to think about. Rahul says, I watched your whole video yesterday. It was fun. Thanks for being there, Rahul. It was definitely a heck of a class. And I know that you were also trying to throw out some suggestions, but AI came up with it. The humans did not solve the problem. Let the record show that the humans did not solve the problem. Yeah, Rahul, I know that you're our god on Instagram. I know your different identities. I'm on to you. You may call me, says Tim from Michigan. Yeah, I remember Tim, but I still understand your previous message. What is this about the one standard deviation? You wrote something about one standard deviations or something. I've got a buzz outside of one standard deviation. I don't get it. Help me understand that. Where I live, it's 5 degrees. Really? In India? What part is that? 5 degrees is like really cool, isn't it? Isn't that like jacket weather? Oh, it's in a North Mountain region. Oh, okay, cool. Good to know. Good to know. I would have not have guessed that for this time of year. I'm assuming you're at elevation, right? You're probably not like at sea level for that. For 5 degrees this time of year, you got to be at some pretty serious elevation, I would assume. Let me know the elevation, Rahul. Sarvesh says it's raining here in Mumbai. Nice. Nice. I love the rain. Where I live, we only get like 3 to 5 days worth of rain. So yeah, it's rain is a rare occurrence out here. Tarun says India is big and the weather changes from state to state. You know what? I've been telling people that India is a big country, but yeah, I still have people who join and they just say I'm from India. Well, I mean, where in India? It's a big country. Michael says it's been raining for days now in Nigeria. Oh, really? Like multiple days? How many days? I've never lived in a country like that where like it rains and rains and rains. I think I'd like to try that once. I don't know if I'd like that all the time. When I was in New York, we got a lot of rain, but not like multiple days. You may call me Tim. Have a buzz. It's not as intense as you would assume. You're buzzed at 8 a.m.? Tim, might be time to reach out for some help, buddy. It's too early to be buzzed. Sahai Jalaj 16. Hi, Dennis. Hey, Sahai, how are you? Sahai, have I seen you in the chat before? If it's your first time, welcome. Let us know your city, state, province. Tarun says, how many years it took for you to become a chief data scientist? Good question, Tarun. I'll come back to that. Tim says, you know about the black helicopter. I don't know. There's a lot of black helicopters where I live, to be honest with you. Yeah, just to give you guys some context, I am about 15 miles from Creech Air Force Base. If that doesn't mean anything to you, go ahead and Google it. CREECH, Creech Air Force Base. I live near black helicopters. Rohan says, I think they will first allow our coding or thinking skills to diminish compared to previous ChatGPT era, and then we'll be locked to use the premium versions. But I don't know, Rohan. I think that our thinking skills to diminish compared to previous ChatGPT era. Maybe, maybe. Yeah, I guess I could see that. Because, there will come a time, and this is not far off in the future, but there will come a time when you can claim, I am a Python coder because I'm really good at prompts. Like, there will be a time when you can claim that, right? Where you alone do not have Python skills, but ChatGPT does, and you know how to work ChatGPT, right? Yeah, Rohan adds more and more are using LLMs for every. Yeah, sure, Rohan. I agree with that. The way I think about it, and maybe you guys have read about this before too, because I'm not going to claim credit for this. Other authors have written about this, but they have written about how I remember that I read it in relation to Wikipedia, and it was talking about how the internet and Wikipedia is like your mental hard drive, right? It's your external hard drive. You don't have to remember anything ever again. It's all in Wikipedia, right? And you're just a quick search away from finding anything that otherwise would have been in your brain, right? So LLMs are like that, right? Where now I don't have to remember a thing as long as I have a ChatGPT prompt that I can use, right? ChatGPT will just give me the answer. So I see what you're doing. I see where you go with that, Rohan. But again, I don't see it necessarily tied to making you pay. Because to me, that's like that would be OpenAI going after the short money, right? Like, why would they do that to go after $20 a month when they could be going after the military, with the massive budgets, right? You're talking about budgets that are measured in billions, not even millions anymore, right? I mean, what's a small military contract now, right? A small military contract now is like hundreds of millions, right? So with somebody like OpenAI and Microsoft, it'd be like a multi-billion-dollar contract, right? So that's why I'm not sure if I'm on board with that about going after the consumer side. I see it the other way, right? So. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm on board with you as far as like the causes, right? Because people are increasingly relying on LLMs, and myself included. I'm happy to admit that. But I don't know if they're going after the consumer side. I think it's more about the military side. Lots more money in that, right? Like the money wouldn't even compare. I mean, somebody do the math quickly. What's I don't know. Let's call an OpenAI government partnership worth, I don't know, 15 billion as a military contract. That doesn't sound too crazy. What's 15 billion divided by 100 million? Right? It's probably more than 20. Right? So just the quick calculations don't show that, right? Right? I mean, let's do that real quick. I'm gonna do it right here on my iPhone calculator. I'm gonna have to use my rotate. That's 3 billion. That's 30 billion divided by 100 million. Yeah. See. It's $300, right? So the reason I'm picking those numbers is I'm assuming that a contract for the military would be like 30 billion. And then I'm assuming there's 100 million Americans interested in paying for ChatGPT, right? Which is probably a high estimate, by the way, right? 100 million paying customers, that's probably way high. But that would mean that to get the equivalent contract, ChatGPT would have to be charging $300 per person, which they're probably not going to do, right? At $300, you're probably not going to have 100 million people interested, right? So, like, why would they go after the consumer side and keep the consumer free, right? So, I don't know. That's just my thought on it. Let me know what you think, Rohan. Rahul says, Rohan, I believe thought is randomness, but AI is mostly prompt and input oriented. Yeah, but that's a good thing, Rahul. You say that like it's a bad thing. Yassine says, how about local LLMs? Do you have thoughts about their future? Yassine, I haven't spent nearly enough time as I should with local LLMs. I just haven't invested the time, and perhaps I should. Perhaps that'll be a live stream, I can install my first LLM for the first time. I have a couple other ideas for live streams I want to do before then, but I just haven't spent enough time. I'm inviting the chat to respond on that because I know a couple of you have spent time doing that. I mean, Patrick, I think you've done a little bit of that. So yeah, I mean, other people in the chat have maybe done more than I have, so feel free to comment. But I stay in my lane, guys. I only give you information that I actually know about. And I am not smart enough, I am not educated enough to speak about local LLMs. Rahul says, AI can never be conscious. Yeah, I agree with that, and that's okay. Like, AI does not have to be conscious in order to be helpful, right? And I tell this to my stakeholders, right? That, algorithms are not sentient human beings. They're just math formulas, right? So, yeah, so I think that the whole consciousness thing is overrated. It's probably just driven by sci-fi books and wanting humanoid robots and things like that. Yeah, it's not conscious, and it'll probably never be fully conscious, but who cares? I'm okay with that. Like, I don't think there's a big loss there if they have never been, if they won't be conscious, right? Rahul says, I also haven't used LLMs. I'm still in the deep learning process, but might jump to LLMs after that. Rahul, do you mean that you're not using them from a programmatic perspective or from like a consumer perspective? Because surely you've done some ChatGPT queries and stuff, right? I mean, I'll assume that you've been an end user of them. But yeah, I mean, if you want to learn more about deep learning and then learn more about how LLMs are created, that's good, right? So I don't know how deep you're going into your deep learning, but here's a tip for everyone in chat, okay? If you really want to know about LLMs and how we got to generative AI, like how did we get here, right? Because, in many ways, we've taken a big leap forward in the last 2 years, right? If you want to know more about that, start studying, this is the one to Google, GANs, G-A-N, Generative Adversarial Networks. All right, I'll give that again. Google GANs, G-A-N, Generative Adversarial Networks. That's a good starting point for understanding how we ended up with where we are today with generative AI. And Rahul, your message reminded me of that, because if you're going from deep learning, GANs is a really good middle point, next stop to jump to before going to LLM. Right? And then that, because you can go, I like your plan. You can go from deep learning to LLMs. That's reasonable. But if you kind of want like a midway point, study GANs, because GANs is effectively what drives LLMs today. It's what enabled generative AI. And GANs are also a lot of fun to work with. I've done some work with GANs. I actually used to use a GAN during one of my icebreakers when I would present to my stakeholders. Unfortunately, I can't use it anymore because everybody knows what generative AI is. But I mean, I used to present it when nobody even knew what it was. But yeah, it's a good midway point between your deep learning studies and LLM studies. Study GANs first, and I think you'll things start to connect when you say that, when you learn that, right? Because then you say, oh, okay, that's a neural network. That's another neural network. And then this comes up. Like it starts to make a little bit more sense, okay? Rahul says, as in a programmatic perspective, okay, yep, you used it for general purposes, okay. Casual Economist, good to see you again. Casual Economist says, good morning. I did not make the whole stream yesterday. You missed out. You missed out. We had a heck of a conversation during the last hour of the stream or so. AI, ChatGPT gave us some bad answers, but it found an answer. It managed to go full circle and find an answer for us. So it was a heck of a stream yesterday, but glad that you were able to make it. Yeah, it was a very fun stream. So anybody who wants to get caught up can go there and find the replay. It's 3 hours though. Woo, 3 hours. But it's a good one. It's a good one. I recommend you guys watch it. Fact World, have you told us where you're from? Let us know your city, state, province. And I don't know if I've seen you in the chat before. I think you might have been here before. But let us know your city, state, province, okay? Fact World says, is there any good future for software engineering, or will it be more AI integrated? It depends. How are you defining software engineering? Software engineering as a field will always exist. It's what does the field do, right? And you're making a distinction between software engineering and AI integration. Well, what's the difference? I mean, you say that like it's a bad thing, right? Like it just means you're going to be using AI tools, right? Visual Studio Code has only been around for what, 20 years? But it didn't change the program, or it didn't take away software engineering. It was just another tool, right? So software engineering will exist. It's just a different tools for the toolbox. Just like carpenters, when carpenters and construction workers, they change from a manual saw to portable electric saws. Construction workers still exist. They just use electric equipment now, right? So same thing. The field will exist, just different tools. And it's up to you, up to us to adjust with that, right? And that's why we're doing AI in my data science classes. Because it's up to us to adjust. Okay? Rahul, you're providing a great summary of yesterday's stream. We had a total proper issue printed on stream. We debugged a whole lot of data. We did good. I'm really proud of us. We did good. Factful says, yeah, I'm from Pakistan, from Sindh, Pakistan, Hyderabad. I am your loyal subscriber. Nice. Thank you so much for being here, Factful. Good to see you. Rahul says, at Factworld, you are from where? See, people want to know where you are from, Factworld. Thanks for introducing yourself. Yassine says, regarding the opening note, can you please give us some ideas on how one can improve his rationale? Sure, Yassine. So improving your rationale, to me, is about clear writing and a clear explanation of your process. When I was first learning this, I was in college and I worked for a trade industry. You know, I worked for like the organization that represented the entire industry. I used to, yeah, I mean, I think I might have mentioned this. I think I might have mentioned this before in some of my content. But for those of you who don't know, like my first like grown up, like real jobs in IT, IS, you know, like the whole technology field was working in video games. I used to work in video games. My first proper job was working for Disney. I started off by working for Disney Interactive. By the way, my name is in the credits of a Disney game. If you can find that, you will impress me. But my name is in one of the credits of a Disney game many, 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 many moons ago. Some of you weren't even alive. Okay, that's how long ago it was. So I went on to work for the trade association for the video game industry. I did that for a few years. So I worked in video games and then I worked for the trade industry. And this is how I got through college, by the way. Video games paid my way through college because I was broke in college. And I went to an extremely expensive university in Washington, D.C. It's very expensive to live in. But I worked hard and I managed to pay all my bills. But anyways, so when I was at that trade industry, there was a lady there who was really nice and she helped me work on my writing. And the way she described it was you got to give your reader steps to Toyland, right? You got to treat them like a small child, and you are taking them to a beautiful Toyland, and you're explaining the steps they need to get to the Toyland. So you got to like have very distinct portions in your rationale, and say, here's where we are, here's where we are. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. And then here's, where we could end up. Or here's what I found, right? So that's what I try to think about when I do my rationale. You should try to have clear sections in your document, in your explanation of what you're doing, right? So I've posted it in the Discord before, but just generally speaking, and I might do a live stream on this, just like I did the resume one. This might be a good one, right? What am I trying to solve, right? That's the first part of your rationale. What am I trying to solve? If you're doing a business paper, you might want to say, why am I trying to solve it? Just because not every problem needs to be solved, right? But why am I trying to solve it? Okay. What is a proposed solution for me to solve that? In other words, your thesis, right? I've told you what the problem is. Here's what I'm putting forth as a solution. This is the thesis that serves as my solution. And gee, that sounds like the first step of the scientific method, right? Okay, so keep following it, right? Okay, so here's what I'm proposing. Here's what I needed to support my research efforts. I needed to get this data. I needed to transform the data. I needed to do these visualizations, whatever, right? Next section. What are the tests that you need to either prove or disprove your theory, right? You got your data, right? You got your problem, you got your data. Your tests are next, right? Figure that out. And then here's where I executed my test. I used this type of code. I used this type of approach. I then used this other approach because the first approach didn't work. And then this is the approach I settled on. That's another section. And then your next section is, here's what the results told me. I tried 4 different models. Here's my champion model, and here's what the results told me. And then here is within that same section or a separate section, here is what I can conclude now about my proposed solution, right? You bring it back to the thesis. Yes, the thesis holds. I was right. Here's why. Or here's the support from the algorithm to tell me why, right? And then as an additional to that, and I know this isn't always part of a scientific process or what, but I like it. I encourage my teams to do this, is every good white paper, every good analysis ends with potential next steps, right? So in a business context, right? Well, first of all, let's separate it. If you're talking about a scientist-to-scientist document, like a white paper or an article you guys are going to write, include potential next steps because it lets people build upon your work. It lets people reference your work in future endeavors, right? But from a business perspective, that's how you sell your client. If you give me a budget of X, I can deliver this. But if you give me a budget of Y, I can deliver this. And if you want the super deluxe package, it's going to be a budget of Z and I can deliver this. Right? But that's more in like in the business setting. But those are the different sections that I would see for explaining your rationale. You just have to tell people how you got there, right? And if that paragraph you have to write, hey, my research does not support the thesis, that's okay. The skill, the challenge is how you got to that conclusion. Your rationale, right? So I hope that helps, Yassine. Good question. I might do a live stream on that. It could be fun. Rohan says, yes, but many of the creative things like art, the LLMs are giving beautiful outputs like the one in our Saturday session. So I think artists will probably maybe be feeling bad that it is giving results. Yeah, sure, Rohan. Absolutely. Absolutely. But at the same time, there's still a ways to go for LLMs. Just last night, I have this new series of videos that I'm going to put out. So I'm starting to kind of like develop my own like the themes around it and like the art around it. And I was so frustrated with ChatGPT because it couldn't produce a basic YouTube thumbnail. Like, you guys should try that. Maybe you guys can correct me on this, but I had a terrible experience last night. Try to get ChatGPT to produce a thumbnail in PNG format, 1280 by 720. Those are the YouTube requirements. Okay? I could not get ChatGPT to do that. Even though it would tell me that it was ready to go, it could not produce it. So, super annoying process with ChatGPT yesterday. So there's still a ways to go. In addition to that, Rohan, I don't know if you guys have read about this, but artists are fighting back. Artists are making it so that their new graphics or new creations going forward can't be archived by LLMs, or at least have a bigger challenge to be archived by LLMs. So there's this notion called the poison pixel that can be included in some of these graphic assets that throw off the metadata of the LLM. So that the LLM, I can't remember if it's that it can't find it anymore or it can't scan it anymore, or it misclassifies it or something like that. But artists are fighting back. In addition to that, there is a product out there, I believe it's called Glaze. So Glaze is this new filter that's being put out there by the artist community. And it's basically the last filter that you put your final product through. And I can't remember exactly how it works, but it basically outputs a version of your product that is somehow protected or somehow, unscannable by LLMs. So there's companies out there, creating an industry around this. I mean, Glaze is only the first product. There'll be other products out there, right? So I agree with you, Rohan, but there's ways to still fight back, and it's happening. It's already happening. Yassine says, Rahul says, Yassine, it's simple question everything. Okay. Rohan says, giving results in minutes would just take days or months for humans. Yeah, Rohan, the speed is the big factor in LLMs, right? That's where the real win is, that they're just so much faster than a human could be. Absolutely. Fact World says, I have a question. I am doing my A-levels. Subjects are CS, economics, and math. Would I be eligible for a BS degree in data science with these subjects? Sure. Sure, why not? You don't have to be a data science degree to succeed in data science, right? Data science is a process. It's a methodology, not a series of classes. So I think you'd be just fine. You'd be just fine if you told me you were taking a bunch of business courses. You'd probably be better off. But yeah, I think that's just fine. Rahul, again, replying to Rohan, says, I believe it's still implementing the human's idea, and also you might not get the result you expect, as in context may not be properly explained. Sure, Rahul. That's part of it, but they're pretty darn good right now, right? I mean, LLMs are pretty strong. So, yeah, you're going to get some unexpected results every now and then, but most of the time they give pretty darn good results. You know what I love the most about LLMs? I'll give you guys an example. So I'm giving you this example because it kind of ties to our previous conversation about, LLMs being like our external hard drive, right? My favorite type of usage of LLMs, and I've had this in a couple of different scenarios, is where I read a lot. I read a lot of studies, I read a lot of books, I read a lot of things. And sometimes I don't always remember everything, right? It's just like anybody else, you forget things. So there's been a couple times where I'll remember the results of a study or what the study talked about, but I can't find the study. And I go to ChatGPT and I say, hey, a few years ago, I read about a study that said this, this, and this. Can you help me find that study? And boom, in a second, it gives me the answer. Oh yeah, you're talking about, this, and here's the link to the paper. Wonderful. That is amazing. I love having that, right? Like if you think about it, that's basically what search engines are missing, right? No search engine does like a reverse search in that way, right? Or, just yesterday I was looking at this store that, how some website owners are so dumb. They list the cities that they're located in, but they don't list the state. Like, they're so self-centered that they don't realize that people don't know the 3 cities names. You gotta name the state that you're in, right? So again, I go to ChatGPT and I say, hey, I see these 3 cities. Where is this located? And the ChatGPT can say, yeah, this is in Iowa or whatever it was, right? So I love that type of reverse search. I have limited information. Can you help me find a lot of information? LLMs are really good at that, right? Because it feeds into that generative capability that they have. Because remember, guys, also, it's not just about code or the speed or art versus text. It's the vastness of the information that it knows. I mean, that's why LLMs are popular, guys. Okay? LLMs are popular because they can answer anything. Because think about it, if they couldn't do that, the consumers wouldn't care. It'd just be a tool for, the nerds like us, right? But to be able to handle consumer level questions about anything, like, do you know how many documents that takes? Like, that's a lot. Like, you're talking about massive, massive training cycles. So try to not get too caught up in all of the intricacies of it. You have to kind of be in awe of just how vast it is. That's the real strength in LLMs. And that's why I bring that up, where I'm concerned when you see these data deals. Because now it's not vast, now it's the Financial Times. Right? You go from this 1,000-foot wide view to 1 foot wide. We used to scan every business document. Now we just scan the Financial Times. I mean, that should be concerning to all of us. Okay? Tarun says, where will you suggest people to move as a data scientist? USA or Switzerland? Oh gosh, why would you pick Switzerland? I have an opinion on this. I actually have a data scientist friend who's in Switzerland. Tarun, give me more information. Why Switzerland, and 2, why are these your only 2 options? Okay, let me know. Rahul says, also, you still remain the artist. Yeah, but for how long? There will be times when people say, nope, I don't want to produce more art, or I don't want to produce art that's available for an LLM. That's happening. It's already happening. Yassine says, thank you, sir. It's very helpful. I hope so, Yassine. If not, send me a message in the Discord. I'll help you out. Rohan says, yes, heard about the poison pixel recently. Yeah, it's happening. Artists are not happy. Rahul says, I still think I still think art is an idea and execution is still relevant, but art is mostly idea. Rohan, who do you think it belongs to? Are you referring to art? Who does art belong to? That's an interesting question. Tarun says, okay, where will you suggest data scientists to move? No, I asked you first. Why Switzerland? Why are those your only two? I want to know why Switzerland and why are those your only two choices? Why the US? I mean, why are those your only two choices? Let me know. I'm curious. Okay. Really good discussion today, guys. Really good discussion. So I want to hear more about this Switzerland and US debate. Or if you're just joining us, you're just hanging back, feel free to let us know your city, state, country, province. Just let us know where you're from, right? And if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I can't believe we're coming up on an hour already. It has flown by today. But really good ideas for future content or different things to do. I might do something around that, around how to write your rationale. That could be fun to do. But Tarun, let us know if you want to give us an answer. Otherwise, I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. Tarun says, I love the landscapes there and in the center of Europe. Yeah, I mean, Switzerland does seem to be like a beautiful country. But Switzerland is also extremely expensive, right? Switzerland also plays a key role in data privacy policy, so you might want to research that a little bit, because there's a lot of data laws in the EU right now, and there's a lot of data laws that are specific to Switzerland. So you might want to research that as far as like your data science search. So for those reasons, I would pick the US. I think the US is probably just more friendly in that way. And I don't know what country you're coming from, but depending on your country, a US visa would still be difficult, but maybe easier than a EU visa. I don't know. It depends on your individual situation. But if those are your only two choices, then I would say US, absolutely. Switzerland is very expensive. I mean, it'd be even with a good data scientist job, with a good salary, it would be very difficult to make, a prosperous living there. At least that's the way I see it, but I'm happy to be wrong on that. Okay. But we're up on an hour, guys. Really appreciate all the participation. Really appreciate all the good discussion. It's nice to have a variety of discussion, among you guys. And I know that we have some very smart people in the chat, so it's good to see you guys. But we're off. We're past Monday. Happy to spend more time with you this week. It's going to be a good week. So take care of yourselves and take care of your families, and I'll see you next time.